All right, now that you had Visual Studio Code and Python installed on your machine, this is going to be the tool that we will be using for the rest of the semester. So the goal of this video is to show you things around this environment so you can get familiar with it. Let's just open a file, write some Python code. Also, we will be going over some of the important concepts about Python. Okay, this is an environment, Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code is what we call IDE, Integrated Development Environment. So an IDE is an environment that allows us gives us a text editor. So something that we can write our code with. Also, it allows us to compile, translate, and run the code. Also, something that we call it debugging. We will learn about this debugging thing in the future. But basically, debugging a code allows us to just follow the code line by line in case we have any logic errors somewhere, so we can actually run everything and watch everything so until we can find the error. It also gives us a bunch of other tools that we can install and use through like installing extensions. So it's a great environment that actually gathers all the useful stuff in one spot, so we can just write our code, run it, and have no issues with other things, and also have a lot of help by using all these different tools that are provided for us. Okay, so let's actually open a Python file, and we're just gonna write our first program, and then I'll explain and leave some comments in the file so you can have them along the way. All right, so every time you want to create a file, the first thing that you need to do, you need to set a working folder. Okay, this folder is going to be where you want to save all your files, all your Python files in it. Okay, so the first thing you need to do open folder. Actually, open folder. In this case, I am going to, inside my downloads, I am going to create a new folder, call it first code, and then this is going to be the folder that I'm going to save all my Python files in it. So I'm just going to open that. Okay, now the first code folder is going to be our working folder. The next thing that we want to do, we want to actually create a file. So all I need to do, I'm just going to do new file, and then I can just type in Python, and then I can just go with create a new Python file. Okay, for this one, I'm just going to call it test.py. All Python files must end with the .py extension. This is how we specify Python files with other type of files. So do not forget this .py. And as you can see, the name is all in lowercase. Okay, so we always name the Python file in lowercase. So keep that in mind. Okay, create a file. There you go. Now we are inside the Python file, and we can actually start writing the code. So as you are writing your code, because the code could be confusing, there is a way for us that we can actually leave comments. This comment that we are leaving on the code is just for us humans, programmers. Your machine and your Python does not understand it. Okay, it doesn't care what you have as a comment there. So this comment is just for humans, but we need to specify what we are writing here is a comment. How do we do that? We just add this hashtag thing or pound sign here, and now whatever I write, it's going to be considered as a comment, and your Python is just going to leave it alone because now it knows that this is just some comments for human being. Okay, so let's just start with what I already mentioned. So this environment for Visual Studio Code is called an IDE, or Integrated Development Environment. Okay. It's an environment that provides you with a couple of things, right? So a text editor, obviously, as you can see, I'm just typing things in it to write your code. An ability to compile and run your code. What does compile mean? So when you write your code, it's in a language that humans can understand, but this is not the same language that your machine can understand. Okay, so when you run your Python code, the Python has this part which is called compiler. So the compiler is responsible for translating the code into a code that is close to the machine code. So now we can actually run that and your machine can understand it. Okay, so you have it already installed in your machine when you install the Python 3 on your machine. So the Python compiler get installed on your machine as long when you install Python 3 on your machine. So but we have it all here inside this IDE. An extra other let's talk about the debugger. A debugger for following the code and finding errors. Sorry if I have a typo or something, I'm just typing everything. And last thing, and extra other tools through installing extensions. There are so many things that we have access to, especially in Visual Studio Code, by installing extensions. There are other IDEs. So many of them actually. PyCharm, I don't know, like Eclipse. There's so many of them, like Dr. Java, which basically is for writing Java code. There's so many of them. Okay, there's so many. The Visual Studio Code is the one that most companies are using right now. Most programmers are using right now. It's a lightweight program that you can easily install, and it allows you to install extensions on it super easily. So it's a powerful tool. It's a powerful IDE. So this is what we call comment. For writing comments, we use this. Comments are for humans, and Python will ignore them. There are cases you write a line of code and you want to explain it. There we go. We're gonna leave a comment there. Okay, so let's just start writing a program. There are two ways. To write Python code here. So the first one, well, before I get to that part, I'm just gonna add a parenthesis here. The Python code that we write here or inside any other text editor is typically referred to as Python source code. So when you write a Python code, when you open the text editor or your IDE and you write a Python code and you save it with inside the file with the extension py, this is where you have all your instructions or the Python codes, and we call this file a source code. Okay, so you will hear this term source code a lot, so keep that in mind when you hear the source code. That means we're referring to the file that has Python codes in it and you saved it with the extension .py. All right, let's get to writing a code. So there are two ways for writing a code. The first one is you can just start writing a code here. Line by line, you just write codes. That's going to be the first way. Just start writing the code line by line. So for example, let's just show some messages on this screen. I can just say print hello world, print 10 plus 32, for example. So save it. I'm using Command S. If you're a Windows user, you can use Control S, or you can just go file and save. Okay, the first time always you want to run your code, what you need to do is you need to run this item. You need to click on this, run Python file. There you go. It's running hello world, whatever. 42 is the result of this. That's one way. Okay. The other way is dividing, forgot the hashtag thing. You can divide your code into separated and meaningful blocks of code, which is actually recommended. Okay, so you don't want to just start writing codes with no, order or something. You want to organize your code. Okay, you want to, for each task, you want to have a specific block of code and you want to separate that from the other part of the code. So that's a second way of writing code, dividing the code into separated and meaningful blocks of code, which is recommended. Actually, this is the better way of writing a code. But the question is, if we divide the code into different blocks, how does Python know which block it should run first, right? Like if we have different block of code, should it run the first one? Should it run the last one? Should it start running all these different blocks from the middle? So that's a big question. So every time we create a block of code, we can actually name that block of code. And there is a specific name that when you run your code, Python gonna look for, which is called main. Okay, if we call that block of code and if we name it main, now that's gonna be the first block that Python runs, and whatever code we have inside that block, which could be calling other blocks, now it's just going to get to those one by one. It's just going to run the body of that main block line by line, and inside that block we can actually call other blocks of codes. Okay, so I'm just going to write this, but if we divide the code into different blocks, how does the Python interpret. How does the Python know which block of code it should run first and start with? The answer is it always looks for a specific block called, or I should say named, underscore underscore name underscore 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 main. Okay, so if you call that block of code this, it's gonna find, it's gonna look for it, it's gonna find it, it's gonna run it. It's gonna run whatever code you have inside the body of this block to run that one first. All right, let me show you an example. So this is how you start. This is how you start the block of main. Okay, you use if underscore underscore name underscore underscore equals to main, and then colon, and boom. So now this is the start of, sorry, I forgot, it has to be 2 equals, sorry. And now this is how you start the block of main, called main. So this is, and I have a typo here. Yeah, so sorry. So this is how we start a code. So we start with this if name equals to main, and then we start writing a code inside this block of code. Main hello world print 10 plus 14, for example. Okay, I'm gonna save it. I'm gonna run it, and as you can see, it is running it. Okay, so so in this case, I only have one block of main. So what's going to happen if I have more blocks, right? We call these blocks functions. Okay, these blocks are functions. We will learn about all these details along the way again. Okay, this is just to warm up, me explaining some stuff so you can actually start writing something and working with this environment. But don't panic, don't worry, we will go over all these concepts again, okay, in the future very soon. So we can actually divide the code into specific blocks of code, and they are called function. So this block of code, we called it the main block, right? And it starts with if the name is main, and then you can have it. We also have another sort of block of code, we call it function, and we start the function with word def. This is how you define a function. I'm just gonna call this one also main, and then I can just say print this is inside the main function. And now I have another function that I can throw print end of main function. I can throw a bunch of codes in it, and actually now this function can be called inside other blocks of code. So for example, here I can just call that. I can just say, all right, let's run that one. Okay, save, compile and run. And as you can see now, when we run this code, so this is what happened. It's going to look for the main, and then it's going to run whatever code we have inside the main, which is going to print hello world, It's going to print 24, and then we are calling this main method. So it's going to jump over inside the main function, and then it's going to run whatever code we have inside that one. So it's going to print this message, and then it's going to print this message. And then when it's done, it's going to go back here, and now we are at the end of the program, so it stops the whole thing. So that's going to be the how we can run the code and write the code and dividing the code into different and separating and meaningful blocks of code. So we start with the main, and then we can define also a bunch of functions, which is this way is more recommended because it adds clarity to your code. So let me add some comments for this. Function is a block of code that can be called and when it's called, Python runs all the code that is inside the body of that function. So you just saw it. We just called the main, and Python ran all these lines one by one. There are different ways for printing things. Let's just see another one. I love programming. Okay, we can separate different words using comma. That's another way. And when you do that, when you separate words with comma, it adds a space. Do you see that? It's adding space in the result. So this is basically the same as just doing this. I love programming. Now I am adding spaces manually to my message, but here you can separate them by comma. So basically Python puts a space over those commas and combine all those words. These are the values. We call them a string value. So string value is a combination of characters. We can just create those we can use those to create messages, stuff like that. We will learn all of these again next week. Okay, I'm just making sure that you have some understanding at this point. What else I can say at this point? So based on what I just showed you, the best way we can describe a Python code is the Python is a script, bunch of instructions that contains multiple functions. As I just showed you, it is recommended to write the code in different blocks of code. So basically, if somebody asks you what the Python code is, it's just a bunch of script and instructions that contains, multiple functions. That's actually the term that we use when we want to explain a Python code. So the best way that we can describe a Python code is a script or instructions that contains multiple functions. Yeah, so Python is a script that contains multiple functions, and then inside those functions we have the actual codes and everything that gets run. Let's write some codes. One thing that I forgot to mention is that When you have a block of code, the way we separate the header of that block with the body is by indentation. So I am using tab on my keyboard to add indentation to this. And this is the way Python understands, oh, this code belongs to this body. And by seeing this colon thing here, Python understand, okay, right after this should start the body of this function, or right after this should start the body of this main function. Okay, and then I use tab to specify whatever that goes under this main. Now it's the body of this one. Okay, and as you can see, we finished the tab here, so that means the body of this main function is already gone. So if I add another function here, since the indentation is gone, Python realizes that, okay, so now the body of this guy is gone. So we're at the end. So I'm just going to keep writing codes. Since I'm adding indentation, that means I'm still writing code inside the body of this main. There we go. Don't forget using a tab. I can use also shift tab to just push this back, or I can just use tab to just push this forward. All right, let's write a bunch of codes and run them. So 2 by 2, obviously it's going to be 4. There we go. Print. We have different type of values that we can use. This is what we call integer. Again, next week we're going to learn about this. Integers are integers, right? Just clear numbers. We also have double values. They have points in them. The numbers that have dots in them, we call them double values. And when you do some operations on one of those, the result is also going to be a double type. Again, we will learn these next week. I'm just showing you a bunch of examples. So now I'm adding an integer to a double value. Since one of the numbers is double, so the whole result now is going to be double type. There we go. Now the result is 5. It's not 5 like this. Not 5. Not like 5. It's 5 with 0.0. Okay, now because it's now the result is double. Print. Let's do this. Okay, well, obviously the result should be 0.2. But what if I just do this? What do you think the result is going to be? Whoa, look at that. So many zeros. What just happened here? This stuff like this happens actually because of the way double values are getting saved inside your computer. So dealing with double values and precision points are kind of complicated, happening behind the scene of your computer. So it's very important when you're doing actual calculation, you keep that in mind, that things like this could happen. This is called floating point problem. Actually, NASA sent a rocket to this space and it was blown up in the middle of the way just because this error. They were just adding a bunch of double values and they didn't count the errors that might happen as they are doing it, and they just lost billions of dollars because of that. So this is a big thing. We will look at some solutions in the future, how you can manage stuff like this, but keep that in mind when you're adding double values. Stuff like this could happen, and this happens in all other programming languages. Just keep that in mind. So now print. For a string value, I can use double quotations or single quotations. It doesn't matter. In Python, I can use single quotation or double quotation, using this or this. both for string values in Python. Again, string values are values, are a combination of characters like messages, stuff like that we can use. So basically it's just going to concatenate these two. I'm just going to add a space here and run it again. So now it's adding this space here. So for example, in Java, we use this single quotation for characters and double quotations for a string, but in Python, it doesn't matter. We can use both of them for a string. Print 1 plus 2. So look at that. Now I am using 1 and 2 as a string value. So what's going to happen? Is it going to be 3? No, they're just a string, like a simple character with no meaning. So it's just going to concatenate those, put them together as one big string. So what's going to happen if I just try to do this, combining an actual number with the string value of that number? Boom! Now, there we go. You just saw your first error that could happen as you're writing your Python code. So now it doesn't like it. It says this is an unsupported operand type. So keep that in mind. So basically we are adding up an integer with a string type. Do you see that? So you really need to be careful as you're writing programs in Python. What type you are combining together. Again, you will learn all these stuff next week again. Don't worry about it if it's confusing now. We will go over all these details again. So this is going to be error. Because we can't combine an int value with the string. All right. There are other things we can do. We can actually convert that number to a string by using the str function. And now we have a string version of this number, which basically we can combine with 2. There we go. Don't worry, this is just a function. I'm just showing you some stuff. It's okay if you really don't understand it. We get to all these details later. So for example, we have this string and we want to convert all the characters into uppercase. So I can just say from this string, run the function called upper. So it's going to convert everything into uppercase. Like I said, don't panic. You will learn all this stuff. So or I can say, what is the length of this string? How many characters does this one have? So it's going to give me 3. Or I can say string amjad, count how many characters A do I have inside this string, and it tells you there are 2 of them. So yeah, that's these are just some examples of different prints that we can use. Also, let's create a new file so I can show you how calling functions from one another could get complicated and is possible. So I'm just going to create a new file, Python. I'm going to call it functions.py. All right, so a demonstration of how one program can be broken into multiple functions. Well, yeah, that's enough for now. All right, let's just start with obviously a function. I'm gonna call it start box. And then I'm gonna print a bunch of stars, 1 2 3 4 5, I'm just going to copy this command or Control C, command and Control V for pasting it. Okay, so now I have one function. Let's define another one. Start triangle, for example, and I can just do print. Well, you know what? I'm just gonna do this, and I'm just gonna go down. Well, let's say this is a triangle. It's not, but well, kind of it is. And then let's define another one, main. And you know what? Inside this, we are going to call the other functions. We're going to start with this, and then we're going to print, I don't know, hi everyone. And then we're going to call the start box function, and then we're going to print goodbye, and then we are going to call the start box twice. But when I run this code, nothing would happen. Let me just run it. There we go. There's no result. Do you see that? There's nothing. Why is that? Because the first thing the Python compiler does is it's going to, well, the first thing the Python does in general is going to look for the main function, the one that has the name main. And because we don't have that here, so there's nothing to run. That's why there is no result when I run this code. So let's add that. So if name equals main, so now this is going to be the first one that Python is going to run. Okay, save. Now run it. There we go. Now it's going to start with running the main method, main function, and then inside the main function we're running the start triangle one, and then we're printing this hi everyone, and then we run the start box function, so it's gonna print these box thing, and then it says goodbye, and then it's gonna print boxes twice, and then we are at the end of the main, so we're done with this function. So we'll go back to this one, and we are also at the end of the actual main block, so we're done. That's how it stops.